Join UF Hall of Famer and 14-year NFL vet Shane Matthews every weekday as he brings you all you need to know about your Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions with some of the biggest names in sports. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, or watch us live at 8 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Seth Harp on Sports with you here on this Tuesday. We're Podup with Matthews in the morning. We have a new national champion in college basketball as UConn takes care of business against San Diego State in Houston on Monday night. Also in the news, there is a team that apparently is falling in love with Anthony Richardson, and it's the Tennessee Titans. How about this? The latest talk as of the last 45 minutes is that the Titans are interested to move up to the number 3 slot on trading with the Arizona Cardinals. It hasn't happened yet, but they are extremely interested in Anthony Richardson, impressed with his pro day, looking to replace Ryan Tannehill at quarterback, with all indications now that C.J. Stroud likely going to go number 1 overall to the Carolina Panthers, and the Texans, even though they threw out a smokescreen that they may not draft a quarterback, still looking at Bryce Young, looking now like the Tennessee Titans want to get ahead of the Indianapolis Colts to get into the Anthony Richardson sweepstakes. So we're going to look at that as well. Also, man, I got a lot of good stories today. More drama. I never thought that we'd have more drama and more intrigue and more discussions on the back end of the women's national championship than on the men's, but here we are. A day after the whole Angel Reese pointing at the ring, taunting Caitlin Clark, we have another layer to this, and it actually comes from our nation's capital. So more drama with regards to that, and also something else that's just bizarre. I get why, I get the idea behind it, but Jalen Carter from Georgia, not going to work out, not going to visit teams outside of the top 10 of the draft because he's going to go in the top 10. I'll tell you why that's a mistake. Again, Seth Harp on Sports with you here on this Tuesday morning. Of course, any questions for us, fire away, courtesy of Facebook Live, brought to you by Meldon Law, the only official law firm injury partner of the Florida Gators. And I am joining you today, courtesy of Titan MRI and our Titan MRI hub. There we go. Okay, where to start? Let's start with the national championship game, okay? Look, I thought the Final Four was boring. I talked about this a little bit last week. Apparently, I'm not the only one that thought it was boring. You thought it was boring too, because viewership and consumption of it's down about 7% to where it was a year ago. That's the tournament heading into the Final Four. We don't have the exact numbers from the Final Four yet, but if you're bailing on if you're bailing on the second weekend, you need those big names to grab you into the third weekend, and it just didn't happen. It didn't happen. Now, the lineage of all this when it comes to UConn is the ascension of UConn. Is UConn a blue blood? I've always thought for the longest time that, they have worked their way into that category. It's not the same as what Duke did, but let's face it, in the late 70s and 80s, Duke went to what? Duke went to 5-6 Final Fours before they finally won their first national championship. And Mike Krzyzewski and the gravitas of Leitner and all those guys was able to elevate that program into a blue blood. But people forget Duke didn't win their first title until the 90s. So UConn now has their 5th in 24 years. And, you look back at it, 99, 04, 2011, 2014, and now 2023, 3 different head coaches. We've reached that era. Now, look, it's very similar to what North Carolina has done. And I know that's jarring, but UConn's track record is very similar to North Carolina. Now, they don't have the Michael Jordan and the Tar Heel Mafia and all those things that go with it, but it's very similar. They're almost identical in terms of their championships. North Carolina's won 6, UConn's won 5. North Carolina's had 3 different head coaches do it, right? The 3 different head coaches that have done it, 2 different head coaches. So Okay, now what? It's a good question. I think North Carolina's had 4 different coaches lead them to the Final Four, right? Guthridge did it. Of course, Dean Smith did it. Roy Williams did it, and now Hubert Davis last year did it. So, okay, now what? Well, and that's what's interesting about this because no, every time any team wins a championship, it's like, oh, they've got a dynasty going, and then sometimes it fades away. And UConn's one of these things. Boom, championship disappears. Boom, championship disappears. Boom, championship disappears. I think was it 2009 that they got to the Final Four and they lost? Was it to Michigan State? When they get there, they win it. They're 5-0 in championship games. So I just after seeing that and after watching it, the Final Four was boring to me. It was the women's Final Four to me was much more captivating, much more thrilling. And it's because look, Iowa's not a star-studded program, but Iowa had a star. They had a star. And the numbers that she's put up is absolutely remarkable. So I was thinking about this, and I think it's time that we honestly have this discussion and it takes place. They need to reseed this thing after the opening weekend. Once you get to the Sweet 16, they need to reseed this thing. On the one side of the bracket, you had UConn, you had Gonzaga, you had Texas, you had Miami on the one side of the bracket. On the other side, you had FAU, you had what? You had Princeton, you had San Diego State. Look, in football, we do this. We do this in the NFL after the first weekend. After the first weekend in the NFL, if the 7 seed beats the 2 seed, the 7 seed has to play the 1 seed. The NFL, we do this. We do this in sports. We reseed. Okay, the worst team left takes on the best team. So, you want a better product? The goal is to get the best teams in the finals, right? That's the goal. The goal is you want the best. Well, shouldn't there be a reward? And I know that there's been some talk about floating things like giving additional buys and things like that. No, just reseed this sucker. Reseed this sucker. Now, there's got to be some stipulations how you reseed it because there could be teams red hot in the tournament. You have to rethink things. But I sit here and I say to myself, I would love to see this thing rebracketed and remarketed after the first opening weekend. It'd be a better product. Or you get this. This is the risk that you run. Now, last year you didn't have it, and I know there's an ebb and flow to it. Kind of like we have the Masters coming up this weekend, and okay, what do we do to ensure? There's nothing you can do to ensure that your heavy hitters are around over the weekend, and sometimes you get lucky. Sometimes you get Tiger Woods and Jordan Spieth in the final 2 groups, and sometimes you get who's this again? Who am I watching here? Is there anybody that's going to draw me into the final 3 or 4 hours of this thing? So I know it's luck of the draw, but where UConn is now, 5th title. They are up there now. What? They're tied with Indiana and they're tied with Duke with 5 national championships. North Carolina has 6. What? Kentucky has 8. And UCLA has 11. So there's where we are in terms of championships and pedigree. It was a boring Final Four, and last night's championship game was interesting for a little while there. San Diego State got it within 8, 7. I think they did within 6 at one point, but just a boring championship game. Which leads you to the other championship game. And, the numbers are in. It's the most watched. Women's Final Four drew 9.9 million viewers on Sunday afternoon. And it outdrew Thursday Night Football, which was on Amazon. So I kind of understand that to some extent. It's not going to compete with, Monday Night Football, but it did challenge some other big sporting events. It challenged, it was bigger than any golf tournament. It was bigger than any, it was bigger than the NBA playoffs. It was bigger than all of these things. It was all of these things. And, it goes back to a point that I've made numerous times that everybody talks about how they love team. Oh, I love the team. I love the team concept. But that's not interesting. You don't watch that. You don't. You watch stars. Did people watch the women's Final Four because of good, clean team play? No, you watched it because of Caitlin Clark. That's why you watched it. When NFL schedules come out, you look at teams, you look at quarterbacks. Oh, who are we going to get? Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes? Who are we going to get? Look at this. Look at this. We got Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. That's how we look at games. We look at stars. We line things up. Outside of arenas, you have pictures or you have large posters of individual players. Stars are what drive sports. They do. And the women's Final Four proves this. The women's Final Four and you watched it in record numbers. Do it. You did. And it leads to something else interesting with Caitlin Clark today. And, it's one of these things that she's not asking for any of this attention, but boy, she's front and center when it comes to all of it. Comes to all of it. But, we're 2 days later and we're still talking about the women's championship game. It was interesting because, I was in there I was working with a student yesterday about how this lines itself up and, the drama and what was going on with Angel Reese and pointing at the ring and everything that took place final that game and they, don't see me now type of stuff and all those things that took place. And I said, the men's championship game tonight, we're talking about an incident that happened after the women's game. Why? Because you love drama. You do. That's what sports media is. You're consuming this for drama. You're going to be much more interested if I say something that upsets you than if I say something that doesn't. If I'm talking about interesting topics, you're going to be much more engaged. If I talk about Bronny James being a member of the Florida Gators, you reacted. Why? I don't want that drama around. It's a stardom, right? We're attracted to stars. Stars have gravitational pull. So I look at what happened with Caitlin Clark, and now you have a situation. And look, this is one of these things that this is going to be made a big deal too. I think what happened on the court the other day is a bigger deal than what this is. But when the first lady said, I would like both teams to come, both Iowa and LSU. That's not how it works. Come to the White House because both teams played so hard. Look, that's reserved for champions. It is. It's reserved just for champions. I get what was, and I think it could be cool to get Caitlin and Angel Reese together there, but she doesn't like her. This is not going to work. Like professional wrestling more so than anything else right now with these two. Caitlin Clark is kind of, if you notice, she hasn't said anything. She lost. She's taken that side street and she just kind of done. She hasn't said anything since they lost. Well, she came out to her teammates and what it meant, but she's not addressed this controversy. And it just keeps brewing and brewing and brewing. And people defend, Angel Reese. And look, fine if you want to defend her, but you can't sit there and say that's, everybody talks about quality sportsmanship. And, it's about sportsmanship. And no, it's not. If you defend her, no way. No way. You can't defend that. Look, she can do it if she wants, but you can't sit there and say that, it's class. And now there's nothing classy about any of this. And again, what the first lady did, okay, we want LSU to come to the White House, but we want Iowa to come to it. It doesn't work that way. It just doesn't. I think what Angel Reese did the other night was cheap. All right. It's one thing in the moment you win, you point to your fans, and Caitlin Clark would do this where she'd point at the crowd and do this to the crowd. That stuff's fine to your own crowd. But when you follow somebody around the court for 40 seconds rather than celebrating with your teammates, you can do it if you want, but don't tell me, this is about the team. No, it was about you taunting her. You want to do it, fine, knock yourself out. But here we are 48 hours later, and it's still one of those things that people are talking about. Let's see here. We're wondering in Vince, who won Shane's bracket pool? I have no idea. All I know is I think that thing was decided before Final Four weekend, right? Unless somebody had UConn winning it. Joe writes in. He said, is it really the NIL's fault? It might have an effect on Miami getting as far as they did, but not those others. I don't, when it comes to the Final Four, is it the NIL's fault? FAU didn't go out and buy a bunch of players. They didn't. Miami had a bunch of guys on there. UConn spent some bucks too. Not as much money as Miami spent on these teams, but Kentucky went out and got some. Look, Gonzaga. Look, UConn did something. And when you look at how they won this championship, usually you win titles on great guard play, being able to bring the ball up, shoot, perimeter penetration. That's what the NCAA tournament's been about for the better part of the last 25, 30 years. UConn, I've never seen a front court that big and that deep. I mean, they're bringing 6'9" guys off the bench. They went 5 deep, 6'8" and above. That's unheard of. So when you have all these guards that are playing, UConn's got nothing but, sequoia and sycamore and redwoods. It's just big. They were big. And, San Diego State, we're going to get physical with them. You're not going to get physical with 6'9" guys. Not 5 of them. You're not over the course of 40 minutes. UConn's just a bigger team. So I don't know, it's the most exciting basketball. But I look around at this thing and look, they won every game by double digits. I was going through yesterday. I can't find a team in the NCAA basketball tournament that's won every game by double digits from the beginning all the way to the end. They won every game by double digits. What was the closest anybody came to them? 13, 14 points? Even the most dominant teams ever. And now you can sit there and say, okay, well, what was the best team that they beat along the way? And that's fair. Did they beat anything better than a 5 seed? I don't think they did. They beat a 5 in the finals, right? They beat Miami, who was a 5 in the Final Four. We know that they were a 5 seed, UConn was, right? So they beat a 12 seed. And then what did they beat after that? Because Miami took care of Indiana, who was the 4. Did UConn really? I don't think they beat anybody higher than a 5 seed. So, okay, well, they dominated this run, but they didn't play. I can tell you no team's ever won a championship and never beaten a 1 through 4 seed en route to it. That's never happened before. So here we are. And again, good for them. It's a championship, but it's one of those championships. It's kind of, you look around and go, Now, would a reseeding save this thing? Maybe a little bit. If you could have separated, got Gonzaga and got Texas and got, UConn and got some of these teams spread out, maybe. But when all the big dogs, everybody, I love all the upsets. All the upsets will get you first and second round success in terms of consumption, but nobody's coming back. And you didn't. And I've always had this approach when it comes to doing this and talking about this. I see what you like and I talk about what you like. That's what I do. I see what you like, what moves the meter, and we talk about those things. Now, I'm not going to agree with you on everything, and you're not going to agree with me on everything, and that's fine. But the fact is you consume the women's Final Four and you didn't consume the men's. And it's because of stars. It's just what happens. I remember the year that we were supposed to get the Lakers Cavs finals, Kobe versus LeBron, and Orlando upset Cleveland. And everyone's like, yeah, Orlando, that's awesome. And it was great for this area. And yeah, Orlando. And nobody watched it. Nobody watched it. There you go. All right. Hot Up with Matthews in the morning. Seth Hart from Harp on Sports is a courtesy of Chris Doring Mortgage. They do mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Doring Mortgage today, 352-244-0840. That's 352-244-0840. Again, any questions for us? Fire away, courtesy of Facebook Live. Meldon Law, the only official injury law firm partner of the Florida Gators. So there you go. Let's see here. Great. Because the men's Final Four didn't have all the ghetto disrespect. That's why you like the women's Final Four better. That didn't happen until after the game. No, I thought the Friday night game with the women, with South Carolina and seriously, with South Carolina and Iowa was great. In the championship game, like LSU is a better basketball team. Just more compelling. People love compelling storylines. They do. That's what you gravitate towards. So here we are. So anyway, there we go on that front. That puts a little bow on both the women's and the men's Final Four. It's just interesting. We don't have the numbers in terms of ratings yet for the actual men's Final Four, but we can tell you that the women's 9.9 million viewers. I went back through and looked, and this is what's fascinating about this. I went back through and looked at the consumption of the Final Four and where it is now compared to 30 years ago. And there are some shocking things, shocking numbers. I was shocked to find that Michigan and Seton Hall is the third most watched championship game ever. I never would have guessed that. The most watched championship game ever? Anybody? Venture a guess? It's Indiana State and it's Michigan State, Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. Gee, what about the stars? It's about stardom. It's about two big stars. If you had Iowa, if you could look, Angel Reese is a sophomore and Caitlin Clark's a junior. If you could create a crystal ball and get those two to play again next year, oh my good gosh. You'd swarm that 9.9 million number. You would. So yeah. And we should have the numbers for the men's Final Four, sometime later today. Tommy writing in, Caitlin Clark and the Bayou Barbie is why I watched. I was hoping for Clark to drop 50. Yeah. I mean, look at we just grabbed it. Vince McMahon figured this out that, professional wrestling, you don't watch for great techniques, you watch for stars, right? You watch for stars. Hulk Hogan, star. Andre the Giant, star. I'm going back to my time, right? Going back to the 80s. You go look at the technique now, it's compared, it's just different, but it was about showmanship. When you had Brutus the Barber Beefcake and Greg the Hammer Valentine, you had a guy that had a boa constrictor. No, it wasn't a boa constrictor, it was a cobra. What a Jake the Snake had. You had a guy walking around with a 2x4. It's ridiculous. If you think about it, you had a guy that thought he was Elvis in the 80s. The gimmicks are ridiculous. But it worked. Why? Stardom. And that's what it is. You got figure here, fight. Boxing, Muhammad Ali, showmanship, fight. And it works. It works. Let's see here. Joe writing in. I will admit I watched it, but it did suck. First couple of rounds were fun, but ending was dull. Yeah. And look, if you're going to get a bunch of upsets, you're going to have a dull ending. Game of Thrones. Kill everybody off. Yeah, I don't know what you're going to get at the end. When it's all said and done, you don't have the drama. You just don't. And again, it was good for those 4 schools there. Fantastic for those 4 schools there. But there you go. No, when I went kind of down a little sidetrack here, but I was looking at the championship numbers. Duke and Michigan. So the 3 most watched championship games ever were Michigan State, Indiana State with Bird and Magic. Were Michigan and Seton Hall with Glenn Rice. And it's a weird thing for that to be number 2. And third was the Fab Five. And their North Carolina matchup is what that was third on the list in terms of the most consumed. Those things were drawing like 29 million people. That's championship game, right? A couple of years ago when we had Oregon in the Final Four, I think that number was like 8.8, or 8.6. So what that'll tell you is the women's championship game we talked about this. The women's championship game will end up having a higher rating number than FAU and San Diego State. It will. Huh. Joe, these two the women are going to be back. See, most of you are covering about the women, not the men. You're more interested in the women's championship. More interested in the way. Look, I get it. I was too. And I'm not one of these things like, all right, how do we get more? That's WNBA talk. They would never move the meter, ever. I would never go into a studio and go, oh, we got to get some WNBA, got to get some women's college basketball talk in there. But you watch the consumption rate, and I watch what you consume, what you like. And okay, this is what you're interested in. This is what we're going to talk about. They're going to make more off the NIL than the WNBA for sure. Joe, you're right. You're right. These endorsements rolling in, and look, if a place was smart, think about like hot and cold. Not that this would happen, but Dairy Queen used to have this slogan called "Hot Eats, Cool Treats." Hot and cold, you could, if Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese play this right, they can make a fortune teaming up together. They can make a fortune. Was it? Oh, gosh, the Elvis movie that just came out, where Colonel Tom Parker, Tom Hanks, selling "I love Elvis" buttons and also "I hate Elvis" buttons. And Christian Laettner got the idea because they're saying "I hate." What were people saying? "I hate Christian Laettner" shirts, so he was selling "I love Christian Laettner" shirts. Yeah. Dan, speaking of WWE, they merged with UFC. Yeah, I don't know I don't know I don't know business wise quite what that means yet. I don't. I know it's Vince McMahon came out looking like I don't even like a Havana gangster from the 60s. I don't even know what he had, that mustache, that pencil thin. I don't know what he was up to. I didn't see that. That's what I took away from that press conference yesterday. Dan writing in, women's sports are growing viewership. The NCAA Gymnastics Championship is on ABC for the first time this year. Yeah, that's the most popular sport at Florida. Well, football's the most popular. It's still the most consumed thing. I always try to tell people that in terms of ratings and consumption when it comes to Gator sports and the radio, football's number one. More people listen to the football pregame show than listen to any other sport. So football's pregame show has more listenership than actual basketball games. Football's pregame show has more listenership than actual baseball games. And then there's some other things that I'm giving you some numbers and how you consume things. It's like, well, why do you carry the pregame show? Because you consume it. Why do you do 3 hours? We can do 6 hours of that sucker and you're going to listen to it. We're not going to quite go down that path. But no, women's gymnastics growing. It's funny because, you look like 7, 8 years ago in women's sports, women's soccer was through the roof. Women's soccer consumption at a high level, and women's soccer, Team USA, and how was it Megan Rapinoe and everybody? Oh my God, women's soccer. And it became a gigantic deal. It went to the World Cup, won the World Cup. Everybody loved it. And then, not that the WNBA has taken off, but it's kind of pivoted a little bit. And now you see Caitlin Clark. And like I told you with women's gymnastics, look, part of it is availability. There's only 4 or 5 meets in the O'Connell Center all year when there's 15, 20 basketball games. So it's a supply demand thing, but it's also a Friday night. It's an event. Little girls, Florida does that right. That's one thing that women's gymnastics, it is. It's the most successful sports program here at Florida now. It is. Pretty solid. Let's go here on Podup with Matthews in the morning. Again, Seth Harp on Sports with you here. Podup with Matthews in the morning is a courtesy of Celebration Point, where Gators go to celebrate. Premium brands like Nike, International Diamond Center, Dave & Buster's, Bass Pro Shops, Regal Cinemas, Prime and Pearl, and the HBC's restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. We will see you at Celebration Point, where Gators come to celebrate. There you go. See, look, we're halfway through this sucker, and women's basketball has dominated it. And it'll be interesting to see where this goes the rest of the week, because this thing has legs. It has legs. It's not dying. It just keeps going and going and going and going. And it's a philosophical debate. It actually, people's like, oh, it's race related. No. I firmly believe this. 8 times out of 10, it is about race when somebody says it's about race. But I think this is about taunting. It's like, well, look at this taunt that happened in this football game. It's like, yeah, they got flagged for it. You weren't okay with that. I don't cover Rams. I said, somebody tweeted me the other day, look what happened with Jalen Ramsey. You didn't say anything about that. I don't cover Rams football. It's not part of podcasts that I do. It's not part of shows that I do. Yeah, just not. All right. Let's see here. Championship basketball. Back burner, UConn's a blue blood, all those things. Fine, great. Anthony Richardson. We got 2 other big things going on. We have Jalen Carter, Georgia, who Drew Rosenhaus says he's not going to work out for teams that aren't picking in the top 10. That's a mistake. Tell you why that's a mistake. And also Anthony Richardson. It looks like Anthony Richardson's going to go in the top 3. And the Tennessee Titans apparently love him and are in talks to move up to number 3. Trade with the Arizona Cardinals. Is Tennessee a good fit for Anthony Richardson? We'll discuss that. And Jalen Carter refusing to work out for teams, or at least not show up or go and visit teams that are picking outside of the top 10. So we'll explore both of those things next. Seth Harp with you here on this Tuesday, in for Shane, JC, and the whole entire crew with Podup with Matthews in the morning.
We want to take this moment to thank our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official injury and accident law attorneys of the Florida Gators. Peaceland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise.
Campus USA Credit Union.
QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Dave & Buster's, eat, drink, play, and watch. Our gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Celebration Point Town Center, Chris Doring Mortgage, Silverback Concrete Co., Ruse Ogre State Farm Insurance, Doreen Wibby, Realtor Caldwell Banker, MM Parish. Our touchdown sponsors are Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteak, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, Aver and Smith, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Silver Cube Billiards and Sports Bar. If you're interested in promoting your business on the show, call Freddie at 352-284-3733. If you like what we're doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Pro Football legend Emmitt Smith understands your joint pain.
It does not surprise me that there are a ton of people out there that's in pain.
That's why Emmitt is such a proponent of QC Kinetics, offering real lasting joint pain relief with non-surgical, all-natural biologic treatments.
Whether it's a joint pain, ankle pain, shoulder pain, neck pain, back pain, hip pain, any kind of pain, the body eventually will break down when it's under that much stress.
That stress can cloud your judgment to the point that you'll just say yes to the scalpel or yes to another prescription of pain pills. But maybe it's time for a second opinion from QC Kinetics.
The reason why I would recommend this is because the natural biologics that QC Kinetics is providing you gives your body a chance to naturally heal itself.
Restorative, regenerative solutions are here. Get lasting relief and live your life.
Call QC Kinetics 352-400-4550. That's 352-400-4550. QC Kinetics 352-400-4550.
With you here on this Tuesday, Podup with Matthews in the morning. A couple of laundry items, at least some things to take care of. Check on your checklist for today. Orlando Guardians? Shane has tickets for you if you want to go and watch Shane Matthews. He's red hot, baby. They have a winning streak, baby. But no, they're taking on the Orlando Guardians. He's got tickets if you want to, and it's simple. All you have to do over on Facebook Live is leave your email address, who you are, so Shane can reach out to you and get you your tickets. So there you go. Again, if you want to check out Shane go up against the Orlando Guardians, a little XFL action, all you have to do is your name, email address, Facebook Live under the comment section, and the gang with Podup with Matthews in the morning. We'll make sure that they get tickets headed your way. So if you want to do that, take care of that right now. I did have a couple people reach out via the Titan MRI hotline talking about Xavier Mincy. Gator football top 5, trending top 5 safety. Look, this recruiting is one of these things. It's how you build a program. It's how you build a program. And to land big guys are essential. If you're a cook, if you're a chef, your ingredients are bad, your cake's going to taste, it's going to taste like crap. So you need big time ingredients, and that's what big time players are. Is Xavier Mincy going to come here? I have no idea. No idea. If the Jaden Rashada thing is taught you anything, everybody falls in love with recruiting classes. Like, we got a top 5, we got a top 7, we got number 13, we got number 19. Look at these studs, look at these studs. Until I see them walk on campus, even if they sign, this used to mean something. So-and-so verbally committed. Okay. Now, and I understand, they're going to verbally commit. I would love it in recruiting if nobody verbally committed. Well, you have to have some kind of idea why. You mean this non-binding contract that I just say out in the air? And then I'm going to verbally, and getting any commitment before somebody is a senior. Somebody, you commit like as a sophomore? Yeah, right. Look, okay. I mean, Florida can get him, go for it. It's like, the Florida's the front runner. All right. How many times I've heard that? Okay. Hope he does come. It'd be exciting. It'd be great. Have an elite safety back there. It's been a while. All right. Seth Harp, Podup with Matthews in the morning with you here on this Tuesday. A quick reminder to everyone as well that Shane O will be back tomorrow and start to pivot a little bit. Florida Gators take on Bethune-Cookman in baseball tonight. Don't really know what that, they'll drill down, but Florida's sitting there, 24-5 right now? Florida Gators baseball, softball struggling. Is it a concern? Yes. When you're below 500 in the conference, it is a concern. And it's a concern for softball because they went out to the West Coast and they got drilled. Oregon drilled them and UCLA drilled them. So, again, it's good teams they're losing. It's a big deal. So, can it be fixed? Yeah, it can be fixed. But all the hype at the beginning of the year where they were 10 running everybody. So, let's see what happens when we play some teams here. And you get to the meat of the schedule and they're struggling a little bit. So, baseball against Bethune tonight. Just everybody stay healthy and, enjoy a beat down at Bethune. So, Anthony Richardson popped up because it looks like the Tennessee Titans like him and like him a lot. So much so, the Titans are in talks to move up to the number 3 slot, trade with the Arizona Cardinals. Of course, Arizona Cardinals have Kyler Murray. They don't need a quarterback. The Titans have Ryan Tannehill and Malik Willis last year, and we found out in a hurry, that's not going to work. It's not going to work at all. So they need to find their future quarterback. And look, they've been down this path before. They have. And they haven't had, they had Marcus Mariota, but in terms of an athletic, dynamic quarterback that can do multiple things, they haven't had that guy since Vince Young, have they? They haven't had that guy since Vince Young. So Anthony Richardson coming to if this is what happens, is that a good fit? I look around the league, depending on the coach and depending on the situation, I still think like the Baltimore Ravens and John Harbaugh, the stability there, the strength in the defense. I still think the Ravens, fantastic fit. Anthony Richardson, the Colts, no. That organization, actually, when you think about it, is kind of a mess. Just considering all the talent they've had. Look at Peyton Manning, all the talent they had, and they only won 1 Super Bowl. I say only, but you had Andrew Luck and Peyton Manning for the better part of 20 plus years. They went to 2 Super Bowls. That's it. Think about that. Well, the Chiefs have been to 3 in the last 4 years? So you kind of look at things from a perspective of, okay, where's a good fit? And the Titans, until last year, they're perennial playoff contenders. They did it with Ryan Tannehill. Derrick Henry is still the guy there, but how much longer is Derrick Henry the guy in Nashville? Maybe 2 more years, maybe 3 more years. And look, there's just certain situations that I think Seattle would be a good fit for Anthony Richardson. Nashville's not the worst thing. Is it the best? No, but Mike Vrabel's a fantastic football coach. He is. Mike Vrabel's a fantastic football coach. And you've got a guy that carries the ball 20 to 25 times a game that can take a lot of the workload off of you, play action, things that Anthony Richardson can do. I don't think it's the worst thing. Like the Texans were awful for Anthony Richardson. Carolina would be terrible for Anthony Richardson. Even Indy, go out there, go win a bunch of games for us. And to have some help along the way, look, here you go. When Patrick Mahomes came in, he had Travis Kelce, Alex Smith had built that relationship up. Okay, we got something here. Okay, some guy that can help me out here. Derrick Henry, that's 20 to 25 plays that Anthony Richardson can just hand it off, move the chains, find himself in a lot of 2nd and 6s, 3rd and 3s. And there's where you can scramble and make some plays. So the Titans, I think actually the Titans are a pretty good situation for Anthony Richardson if they move up to 3. Let this talk that the Titans really like him. He's a physical specimen. He's a monster. Now, the question is, if they do like him, is this one of these things that, okay, is he going to start right away? Are they going to let him work into this a little bit? What's going to be the plan here with the Titans? Because if you look, I know the Chiefs traded 2 first-round picks to move up to Patrick Mahomes and sit him. Do you look at Ryan Tannehill? I know they're talking about cutting him, but they don't really have anybody else. I don't know how that situation goes. I know in Baltimore, if he's behind Lamar for a year, okay. If he's out in Seattle and he's behind Geno for a year, okay. I don't know what the plan would be with the Titans. Don't. But Anthony Richardson, Titans, actually, it's a decent fit. It's a decent fit because of Mike Vrabel. So there you go. All right, but there's the latest with Anthony Richardson. What that means quarterback. If that happens, right? If the Titans move up to 3, quarterback's going 1. What does it look like? C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, it'd be Anthony Richardson. The Colts sitting there at 4. What do the Colts do at that point? Because they just cut Matt Ryan. They don't have anybody on their roster either that's going to win them any games. Do the Colts then go Will Levis at 4? I don't think we've ever had 4 quarterbacks, first 4 picks in the draft. Don't think so. Quarterback. So there you go on that Anthony Richardson front. This came out, and again, there's other situations, there's places that would be disastrous. Oh, the Raiders. No, Anthony, no, absolutely not. Oh my God. They just spent big bucks on Garoppolo, by the way, didn't they? So I don't, but no, pass. Just there's certain places that, Nashville's not the nicest weather-wise, but they're talking about building a new, well, they're not talking about, they're going to build a new $2 billion stadium. So when Anthony Richardson's in year 3 there, he'll have that brand new stadium, and there you go. Nashville's a pretty sweet city. Jalen Carter, something else that popped up today, or actually late last night, that Jalen Carter, well, first of all, there's 2 things that came out. Stetson Bennett's video where he, after being arrested, he said the police are trying to ruin his reputation. Isn't that your fault? She's the one that got in trouble. Trying to ruin my reputation. You did that, Buckaroo. I don't know if your reputation over dramatic too. I don't think it really affects him that much. But Jalen Carter, Drew Rosenhaus is his agent, and Drew Rosenhaus comes out and says, "Hey, look, no, we're not gonna go visit teams that aren't picking in the top 10. We're going in the top 10." And I started to think to myself, wait a second here. I kind of get what he's saying. Like, we're only visiting teams. We're only going to go see teams in the top 10. Well, that's fine, Buckaroo, but we know 4 of those teams are drafting quarterbacks. So that's waste. For like Carolina, for Jalen Carter to go visit and talk with Carolina, that's a waste. If the Titans trade up to number 3, Jalen Carter visiting with the Titans, that's a waste. They're going to give up 2 first-round draft picks and a couple extra 3rd and 4th round picks to go up and draft a defensive lineman. They're not going to do that. And I was sitting here looking at Jalen Carter, and there's teams like the Packers, the Seahawks, and the Steelers that are picking outside of the top 10. What if one of those teams wants to trade up to 9 or 8 to get you? What if a team like, the Steelers is sitting around, or the Packers are sitting around going, man, Jalen Carter's down here at 8. Maybe we can go up and get him. And you're not going to go meet with him? The draft is a fluid thing. Teams move up. I remember when I was covering the Falcons came up from like 25th all the way to what, 5th or 6th for Julio Jones. They have 20 slots to get Julio Jones. It ended up being a good pick. Seldom do you see that for receivers or other positions, but they moved all the way up there to get Julio Jones. That's how much they were in love with him. I don't think you'd see that today in the modern NFL, but what if a team sitting there like the Seahawks that have multiple first-round picks, the Seahawks trade down out of the 5 slot. I guess they're kind of already talking to the Seahawks because the Seahawks are up there. But again, what if there's one of these teams that wants to move up there to get you? Now you're going to – and I understand, look, if Jalen Carter doesn't want to work out for the Bengals, if Jalen Carter doesn't want to work out for the Bills or go meet with them or doesn't want to meet with the Chiefs, I get it because those teams are picking from 25 to 31. I get that at the back end. But when your agent's telling you we're not going to go meet with the teams outside of the top 10, or what if one of those teams outside of the top 10 wants to move up and get you? Now you've just removed that from the equation. Look, it'd be much better for Jalen Carter to have somebody move up to 8 to draft him than for the team picking 8th to draft him. If somebody is willing to give up extra first round or extra second round pick to come up and get you, that shows you your value. Like, wow, they really believed in him, man. Wow. Do you think it was better off for Julio Jones to be drafted by the Browns 7th overall, or the Falcons to move up and give up multiple first round picks to come up and get him? That's the rub when it comes to a lot of this stuff, is that it's not just about that top 10 slot. So when I saw that, I'm like, oh man, come on. You don't exactly have the best thing going for you right now either, dude. You know, he's overweight, the drag racing, all the stuff that, and now you're not going to work out. You're not going to go meet with teams outside of the top 10. That's how good we are. Well, I guess you're just going to remove 11 through 20 off the board. It's like one of these things that I've always tried to instill in, whether they're producers or anybody applying for a job or whatever. Be careful. Be careful when I don't want to work there. I don't want to work for that. I don't want to do that. I had one guy's like just quit on somebody. I had one guy not show up for an interview, job interview. Somebody asked me, he said, we're interested in hiring a producer. Guy didn't show up. What do you do? He's like, I really don't want to work there. I said, dude, what if that guy is somewhere you want to work down the road then? That person gets promoted to your dream city. Now you're not going to get it. I didn't think of that. Yeah. These things kind of connect down the line here a little bit. So there you go. Not the greatest news in terms of Stetson Bennett and Jalen Carter today. And I just, thought that would make it interesting. And you guys get a kick out of that a little bit. Both of those things, Stetson Bennett, the police are ruining his reputation as he gets arrested. Don't get arrested. Podup with Matthews in the morning is a service of Peachland Dentistry, Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte and surrounding areas. Visit them at peachlanddental.com. Join Podup with Matthews every Friday. JC and the QB's weekend picks. Again, if you want tickets, Shane Matthews, XFL action in Orlando coming up. All you got to do is drop your email in the comment section of Facebook Live and name and email, and there you go. Dan writes in, he says, why wouldn't you want to play for some of the better teams at the bottom of the first round? It's one of these things that, look, Ben Roethlisberger's career was better because he fell to Pittsburgh. Quarterbacks, look, Lamar Jackson had a lot of success because he fell all the way to Baltimore. And the Ravens, late in the first round, already had a pretty good, solid team built with Joe Flacco, and he just slid in. Now, you don't want to fall, but Dan, I think the big rub with the Carter thing is not wanting to talk to teams that are picking outside of the top 10. You just cut off 2/3 of the league from trading up to get you. If they really liked you. Look, at Jalen Carter's a guy that some years would have been, last year Jalen Carter may have been the #1 pick. Jalen Carter would have come out last year, he could have been the #1 pick. So you see that and you're like, wait a second here. Okay, if you start to fall to 8 or 9, and then one of these teams like the Packers, like, oh man, we could come again. Everybody does their research, and there's certain guys that fall that you don't expect to be there. Like the Jaguars really didn't expect Taven Bryan to be there. Didn't work out too well for him. They snatched him up. Didn't really talk to him a lot because they didn't expect him to fall all the way to the late 20s. That was rough. It was a rough draft for them. So there you go. All right, Podup with Matthews in the morning as we hit the final stages here on this Tuesday. Again, got a lot of things that we've, able to weave in throughout the course of the program today. And, of course, the big thing, UConn winning the men's national championship on Monday night. It was a boring Final Four. I mean, the FAU San Diego State game had a buzzer beater, but UConn went through and they beat every team by double digits. And since the tournament expanded to 64, I went through and looked. I can't find a team that beat everybody by double digits. UConn's the first team ever. They had a 13-point. Their average margin of victory was 18 points in the tournament, 19 points in the tournament. And nobody came within 13 points of them. It's the most dominant performance ever. And sometimes we love dominance. We do. Dominance, undefeated teams. Kentucky almost a decade ago, 8 years ago now, was a gigantic draw. They were dominant. They beat everybody. The New England Patriots, undefeated. They beat everybody until they lost in the Super Bowl. So Kentucky lost in the Final Four. But with this, UConn dominated all the way through. Unlikely domination. You can go through the tournament and say, okay, somebody's going to beat somebody by double digits the whole way through, and it's going to be a team that's not even a top 4 seed. You'd be like, what? And that's what happened. So, I guess the discussion, and it'll play out throughout the course of the day, is UConn a blue blood? I already saw it this morning. UConn now a blue blood? It's like, I thought they were. It's tough. What's amazing about that is Storrs is kind of in the middle of nowhere. When my sister went to grad school at BU 15 years ago now, has it been 15 years ago? Almost 20 years ago now, that we stopped by Storrs. It was one of those weird things because we just walked right into the gym. Like, okay, this is where UConn, okay. Then walk down to the locker room, walk by Jim Calhoun's office. It's like, this is kind of weird, just walking around. Just walked right in. Walked right in. It was in the summer, it was like in July. But, okay. You look around and go, that's the football field? That's a pile of crap. You're like, oh, this place is kind of out in the middle of nowhere. So it doesn't have like this big recruiting city. Like Villanova has Philly, Georgetown has DC. Of course, Michigan State have Detroit, Chicago, even Florida. You got Orlando, you got Miami. Jacksonville produces talent. Tampa produces talent. Georgia Tech for the longest time had Atlanta, but That program's completely fallen off. You look at, Gonzaga, he's got Seattle to some extent, but you got the Great Northwest. Some of these programs recruit nationally, but UConn doesn't have like a backyard. They don't. So that's what's kind of impressive about that. Like North Carolina and Duke have Charlotte. You got the Tar Heel State. And Connecticut's not known for its big time basketball, but yet it's got a women's team that's won double-digit championships, and now the men have won the fifth. And what's it tie them with? It ties them with Duke's won 5, Indiana's won 5. So there's where UConn is now. North Carolina's won 6, Kentucky's won 8, UCLA's won 11. So the Blue, yeah, are they at the party? You bet they're at the party. I kind of already thought that they were, but it's just one of these things, one of these cities that doesn't have a big media market behind it. It just doesn't. The Big East brought them in, and they were playing football there for a little while, and they didn't really work out. So exit stage left. And UConn's a weird, because you have two just dominant programs. And like the women aren't what they used to be, but they're still perennial power. And here the men win. It's like, okay. So there you go. Again, Seth Harper with you here as we wrap up this edition of Podup with Matthews in the morning on this Tuesday. Brought to you in part by QC Kinetics. If you have joint pain in your knees, shoulders, hip, or back that won't go away, check out QC Kinetics for long-lasting relief. Not surgery, drugs, or downtime. Schedule your free consultation at QC Kinetics with locations in Ocala and now open in Gainesville as well. Also, Rusorga State Farm, dedicated insurance professionals ready to help you in your life go in the right direction, the right insurance options for you and your family. Visit ograinsurance.com. Give them a call, 352-240-1779. That's 352-240-1779. So there you go. Again, it's kind of one of those potpourri days where, yeah, it was interesting because, we talked about this. The women's Final Four is going to have longer legs than the men's Final Four. Because get ready for your day-to-day is going to consist of a lot of Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. And, the first lady wants both of them to be at the White House, and Angel Reese is mad because they should get to go and not Iowa. And I agree with her on that. That's one of those things that, no, I know you really like Caitlin Clark, and it's a great story, but they didn't win. So only championship teams get to go. And okay. But now Jill Biden wants both teams there. No, it's not kind of how that works. You can invite all 4 teams? Well, Caitlin Clark was so special. South Carolina went undefeated. They're the number 1 team all year. You're going to invite them too? So this is going to be your Tuesday. This is where we are on Tuesday. Should Iowa and LSU both go to the White House? Gotta love it. So there we go. All right. As we wrap this thing up here, I need to thank everybody who's a part of it again, and the gang back at Podup with Matthews in the morning. Shane O will be back tomorrow, and we'll journey on throughout the course of the rest of the week here. So there you go. Again, coming up, ESPN Gainesville, WRUF tonight. Of course, Gators and Bethune-Cookman, 24-5. Where Florida sits now, sitting at 7-2 in the conference. Tennessee coming up this weekend. These midweek games, what you'd like to see is, if you're a Gator fan, of course you want to win. But if you could not use your pen after the pen tried, think about how the bullpen was just used this weekend. Not as much as Auburn's bullpen was used. But Florida, what did you have? Did the starters go a combined 15 innings this weekend? I don't think so. Did your starters give you? Did the starters give? I think your pen pitched 12. No, I don't know. It's 14, right? Starters went 14 innings, and Penn went 13. Save some of those arms. If you're looking at anything tonight, you'd like this a situation where maybe only 2 or 3 guys, are on the bump throughout the course of the game. You can save some of those guys as you head up to Knoxville this weekend. And Florida sits at 7-2 in the conference right now. The Gators do baseball, and look at 4 of the top 5 teams in the nation are SEC teams, and Florida doesn't have to play 2 of them. Right? The Gators don't have to play LSU. Was LSU